Toyota losing market share profits. It's a big play on how Korea is coming on in terms of quality, stylish design, etc. So there may be more in this. There may be an upward delayed trend, which brings me to my question, which is the role of foreign direct investment, of course, having substantial impact on holding back the nation brand. Because goodness knows, multinational companies, when they're in countries, their management is not only exposed, but they're very vocal and very influential. American companies, China and India, they're all over the place. The U.S.-India Business Council, U.S.-China Business Council around town, they have programs always saying how great these countries are. In the case of China, I think they're greatly over-exaggerating the positive, but it's very important. But in Korea and also Japan, foreign direct investment hasn't been very welcome. It's very small. Have an exception like GM with Korea with its joint venture. My experience in the last few years is in your meeting with business leaders who are very articulate. The GM first, they don't speak well about Korea, what a great country it is. And almost everybody else is saying, you know, you can't get in there, and it's the chaebol and government regulations, corruption. It's, you know, very few are invested in a serious way. And it's exporting. It's a much more critical view of us, like in a directed, not brand nation. But the change may here be, in the last 3 or 4 years, Korea's had these comprehensive foreign free trade investment agreements with the U.S., EU, India, ASEAN, the other countries, maybe Japan. And is this really going to make a difference? Open the Korean market, we'll have more multinational companies in there, not only improving the economy, presumably, but also having that exposure that will get more positive brand recognition as a nation as well as a corporation. I have to say I'm not sure whether these free trade investment agreements are going to change investment that much. It remains, it's a big question. I wonder whether you've given any thought to the role of multinational company presence and their leadership and their people all over the world talking about these countries.
Yeah, there's actually quite a lot of issues you've raised there. I think definitely Korean policymakers are very keen to welcome such investment. And that would be a major difference from Japan, but the rhetoric is the same, but the reality is even more closed. One example I came across where was actually Thailand, the Thai board of investment. One tactic they use to encourage investment from Japan into Thailand is they've done something slightly different from the usual seminars where normally there'll be official representatives of the country giving pre-prepared talks about how wonderful the country is. And no one believes that because everyone knows it's propaganda. And so what they've started doing is they've started inviting Japanese business people who have invested in Thailand to come and talk about the negative experiences they've had. And they found that that's been extremely effective because it's raised the trust level enormously. And these Japanese business people have been willing to work both with the Thai authorities and potential Japanese investors to try and improve and do something about these barriers that exist. So it needs to be a self-confident state that does that. But I think certainly in the case of the Thai DOI, it will work.
It's hard if I take two questions at
Yeah.
once and I don't know how to respond. So I saw two hands. Yes. Well, then we'll start in back then.
Michael Choi, U.S. Department of Commerce. Unofficially speaking, is it a lot of Korea's nation building a result of just like unorchestrated phenomena? I mean, you already mentioned pop culture, the Korea wave. That seems to be a factor, particularly in Asia. But I was also thinking some global events that Korea hosts, APEC, World Cup, their Olympic gold medalists. These are all things that are not, especially in terms of world perceptions, they're not orchestrated by the government. So, I mean, I feel like a lot of nation building isn't something that can be centrally controlled. And what about Korea as an employer? Because you mentioned trade and investment, but a lot of Korean conglomerates run factories throughout Southeast Asia, China, and not to mention here in the U.S. Does that play a factor in your research?
And, oh, sorry, yes, yeah.
We'll take one more.
And I'm Michael Lazar with Global Parker. I guess I'm going to take a little bit of what a bunch of people have said here, but Robin was talking about how the media can be a strong driver. And Michael just mentioned the large events that Korea's hosted in the past. It would seem to me that in this current strategy that there's one fundamental element that's sort of missing, which is that Korea's hosting the G20 next year, which will have all of the international media and policy and political makers from all of the developed countries present in Korea at once. Wouldn't a strategy focused on trying to improve the image in those 3 days in Seoul, wouldn't that be almost a better way to use Korean resources to, move the needle, so to speak? I mean, it seems like, promoting Taekwondo and, treating foreigners better are great, great things to do, but if you really want to actually make a difference, you're going to have to influence a lot of people quickly and in a large way.
Yeah, if we can just answer those questions in reverse. So the G20 meeting is not in the article, but it is being planned for by the Presidential Council. They're very aware of this is a great showcase for Korea, and they're very focused on news events and I was going to say manipulating the media, but dealing in a good way with the media. So that they are very aware of that. The issue of this mix of orchestrated versus unorchestrated, it's definitely true. It is a mix. You can't orchestrate everything that's going to contribute to a country's image. But certainly the events, they are orchestrated and countries have to decide which ones they're going to bid for. So that is part of the country's strategy. But yes, it's absolutely true that there are many, many things you can orchestrate and they happen spontaneously. And in many cases that is the best way for them to happen. But particularly cultural initiatives and artistic people, cultural people in general, don't like being dragoons into official government campaigns in general. And therefore, there's definitely a need to be aware that there are certain roles that policymakers can play and other areas where they should just step back and let things evolve more and more organically. I mentioned food before. Food and drink is a great way of branding a country. It's an interesting area to look at because some countries orchestrate it and regulation, other countries don't. And for example, in the UK and many countries, there are hundreds or thousands of Indian restaurants. That was not part of an orchestrated strategy, but it certainly had a major impact on some people's perceptions of that country.
I'm going to push back, and then we have two versions that I see. Is how Korea hosts the G20 and what it does to nominate it in events and what a great host it may or may not be matter, or is it just hosting it in general that will have the greatest impact? Or how much of the value added will be devoting funds to that?
It's a difficult question to answer. It's always very difficult to quantify. You can quantify to some extent the actual influx of people and money that comes in during that period. It's harder to track the longer term impact. But definitely between now and then, it certainly is a wonderful opportunity to raise profile even better.
I think David came down with the foundation. I actually go back to, again, Seoul Socialism in '88. That is, I think, its first major effort of international innovation for brain. Again, I think the difference, though, in my question is really one, though, of what is the long-term commitment? I've seen a lot of national brand exercises that have a very short time frame and are expecting results to be delivered very, very quickly. My question really is as you look at the proposal that's coming down from the council, does it have the tenure in place to really ensure that things do get to all the audiences that they'd really like to involve in this? Again, reaching 7 million people and involving a whole very dispersed population is quite a task. It cannot be delivered in a very short time frame, nor can be measured, and its impact measured in that short time frame. So So in your assessment of this exercise, again, there's an exercise, then an